Welcome to the Women in Leadership Body, Mind, Soul, and Business podcast. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Heather, and together we're working to connect women in leadership and business to build relationships, empowering each other, improving the health and wellness of our community, body, mind, soul, and business, sharing the heart and soul of who we are and what we do.
Yay. Back with us today is a super soul branding specialist and complete rock star networker, marketer, and artist, CEO of Visibility U, Hello at Allie Jean, etc., etc. So many hats. The incredibly gifted Allie Jean. Allie, we are blessed to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us again.
I'm really happy to be here. I love you ladies, and it's so good to see you celebrating just recently your 100th podcast episode. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here with us since like the very beginning. And really, you reached your hand out and you pulled us up with you. And I think that is just amazing. We are very blessed to be part of this space with you and with all the amazing women that we have had wonderful connections with. And a lot of that is because of your giving nature.
Thank you so much for saying so. It's what lifts me up is seeing other people reach beyond their potential when it comes to their life and their business. And when I met you two for the first time, I saw it right away. And maybe that's one of my superpowers or something that I learned when I was really young is to see the potential in people, to really envision and understand really quickly what their talents are, their natural talents, and where they might be going in life. It's always been exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So for those who have not ever met you before, which if they listen to the podcast, that would be pretty amazing if they don't know you already, but go ahead and do like a quick refresh of who you are and what it is that you do. What is your passion projects and things?
Aww.
Sorry. No was for the dog. Just like, no, we're not going to start marking right now.
So I'm Allie Jean, and I am a brand strategist, a web designer, and I provide professional SEO services for women in business around the world. I'm very creative when it comes to art, and sometimes it shows up in the branding that I create for women. I love to just, as I said right before this, I really like to reach beyond the vision of my clients. And so they all come to me with what they've built so far and what they envision themselves. And I see even further beyond that. And I organize it, I strategize it, and I create an overarching brand message, and I give them the ability to show up in a spectacular way.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I think what sounds scary is a brand message. When you said that, like, that sounds really scary. Like, as a woman in business, like, what is my brand message? Asking yourself those questions and journaling, and, there's all these things that you can do to help you with that. Could you tell us a little bit about what that would look like for women in business?
Sure. So you don't have to have just one message, but a message is directly linked to what you stand for. And so I think that what's even more scary than trying to figure out what your brand message is and how to strategize that visually and through your website and copy and social media and kind of building that brand identity is talking about anything and putting messages out there. So a message can be just a graphic. Any communication that you're putting out there is a message to the public. And so you have to really think about, is this aligned with my goals, with my ideal clients, and where I'm heading? And do I stand for this? Is it clear? And is it specific? And do I enjoy this message? Does it make sense? And those are the things that we work on exclusively with, when you come on board to allyjean.com. But I would say that you do want to be less general. And I think, I remember when I first came on social media, just to say this, because going online, even doing something like this, can be really scary.
Mhm.
Let's be honest. Even for people like me who are really extroverted, you guys are extroverted. If say you took a break for like 6 months or a year from doing these podcasts, when you returned, it is scary. And I've done this before. So I love to live stream and do all kinds of fun stuff like that. But you want to have a very intentional message that you're giving value of, that really relates to what you love in life and in business. So I deal specifically with personal branding for women. So feminine brands or female business owners, female branding. And I find that we have learned to separate our personal and our professional, but with personal branding, it gives us this freedom. It gives you the freedom to really just be yourselves. And I would say that you two, that was the first thing that I really saw in both of you and what you were building is, I think that, if I were to go over your house right now, I would find exactly the same people that I believe that I know from online. Even if I didn't know you as well as I know you. And I think that that's what really authenticity means. And it is a very powerful trait that all women have. But the problem is that our confidence and the things that we've been taught, maybe in corporate positions in the past, or by people of authority, teachers, parents, things like this, it can really dilute the essence of who you really are. And you might put too many rules on yourself or on your brand identity and exclude those very personal things that will actually gain you more clients or a larger audience or more visibility, or all three of those things.
I feel like the thing that's the most scary for you to share is the most thing that is needed to be shared.
Right.
Because if you can be vulnerable and share those things, then that gives permission for the next lady.
Right.
And it's hard, right?
Right.
It's hard to show up authentically, like when you feel like you could be being judged. Like you have to work through some of those things. And that's what I like about our weekly topics, is that we get a chance to work through and talk, well, that seems to be the thing that's stopping me. You don't realize it
until it happens.
This week
too. I was just going to say, I think too, something to look at, because I really enjoy psychology. It helps a lot too with the brand process, is that we're human and we are judgmental. And so when you are afraid that you're being judged, it's most likely because you have judged others. And there's nothing wrong with realizing that and kind of going, yeah, I've judged others. I mean, let's be real. I have judged others. I'm watching the Heard Depp case, the big trial right now, and I have judged both of them.
Right.
It's wrong. It's not right, because we don't know all the ins and outs, and it's definitely an ego-based kind of reaction. And so, but the cool thing is, once you realize that, you can kind of get past it and go, yeah, like, of course I'm going to be judged, and of course I'm going to judge other people, but forget about that. Let's do something about my purpose in life. Let's get out there. Let's do things that really bring me and my audience value.
So when you talk about female branding, it's not necessarily girly, right?
Right. But that's kind of what comes to mind, right? At first, you think female branding or feminine branding, you think of like a big old pink sparkly website. That's not the case at all. In fact, before we started recording this podcast, we were live and we were just talking about life. We were talking about kids, family, dogs. That is feminine branding. You two were actually in the depths of feminine branding for your identity and mine, because that's what really that's one of our traits that I
Mhm.
think most women have, is that we love to communicate,
Mhm.
and we do tend to want to know a lot of things. So for instance, have you ever, just to kind of give you a little more detail on that trait, have you ever asked, like maybe your husband or a friend of yours that's male, he tells you that a baby's been born, okay? But every question that you ask him, he has no answers for. All he knows is that so-and-so had a baby and it just happened today. What time? What's its name? How much did it weigh? Was she hurt? Is she okay? And we have all of these questions. We
Just
want
the
to know
list.
more.
Right.
We like to talk. We like to communicate. And that, to leave that part out of your brand as a female brand would be not really that natural. And so and by that, I mean, if you're on video, on a podcast being interviewed, if you're writing a blog, if you're writing copy for your website, or talking to a potential client or customer or someone that's interested in helping you, if you were to just keep things short and very professional, and you felt like you were holding yourself back because you didn't want to be too chatty or talk too much and things like that, or communicate too deeply, you would be going against your own female nature. Really. I'm not saying that all females
You're going
talk
against
a lot,
your own
but
knowing.
I think that communication is really important to us. Like in our relationships, whether it's with your parents or a girlfriend or a boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever it is, kids, we tend to be the kind of people that don't want to go to bed until something's solved. We want to know, we want to work things out and communicate. And those are just some normal, like everyday examples of how those things show up as traits and the way that we kind of can be generally. And I think that it's good to put that into the brand. And what you did earlier is just that. So you did it.
Oh, that's
Yay!
cool.
Who knew?
That's a great thing. You're allowing yourself to be free, to be a woman, and to, just not hold yourself back. I think that there's a lot of female traits that can be brought out in your voice. Your voice is anything written or spoken. And you can even have a visual voice. So like I said before, if you put a graphic out there, how does that graphic align with you very, personally? And how does that align with your brand? Does it? What is it saying to us if there's no words at all on the graphic or in the post?
Picture's
what is
worth
that really
1,000
saying?
words.
That's why
right?
sometimes, right. That's why sometimes I will get on people about sharing too many things of other people's posts on social media specifically, because now you're sharing someone else's visual voice and it's saying things that are aligned with them. And maybe it's aligned with you too, but if you do it too much, you're diluting your brand identity online. Just a little tip there. And I think that when you bring out these things in your voice, in your brand's voice, that you're going to attract the people that you want to attract, specifically women. And if you're working with men and women, but you are a female brand and you want to brand yourself as a female brand, you still should align yourself with all of those natural feminine traits that you've had since the day that you were born, and not shy away from them for any reason. Because when you do that, you are diluting the essence of who you are personally, first of all. And then, obviously it's not going to come out in your brand. So you're not going to have a distinguished separation. You're not going to stand apart from the crowd the more you try to be like everyone else or hide things that may have been, maybe someone said it was a negative trait that you had. I always think of this when I was in school, all my report cards said Allie talks too much. And I thought that this was really not a good thing because I'd get in trouble for it. And now I understand it in a different way. It really works for me. And I now embrace that. And I think it helps a lot with my writing and the way that I communicate my brand. Sometimes it does, hurt me a little bit because I might go off on a tangent and get unfocused, but hey, that happens because again, so one of the female traits I think are very widely known is that we're multi-talented and we're also good at multitasking. This is a natural feminine trait that can work really well for any brand, but it can also work against you if you're not focused. More traits that could be worked into a feminine brand is being more empathetic because that's what we are naturally. So this could mean that you open part of your business up to maybe giving to a charity. It could be, say you run some kind of school and you think, what would be great is if I advertise a scholarship, some kind of scholarship that someone can win. And, this is you showing your empathetic side instead of just like being so focused on money all the time. We're nurturing, of course. I mean, we create humans. So nurturing is part of our nature and it's very natural. So you could think, how can my brand allow for more nurturing? And in what area? Is this in my blog? And maybe I talk about, so for instance, for me, if I thought, I'm going to interject nurturing, the nature of nurture into my blog, maybe my topic of writing would be helping people have more courage to stream live. To nurture them and to kind of just focus right on them and kind of go, yes, you can do it, give them more confidence and tools to be more confident. And you two are very nurturing and you're always out there to help people. You have everyone's back. I have probably not met a duo like you in my life. I feel like if I was outside your door right now and I needed to like spend the night, you would have like no question about it, that you would help me in any way that you could. And that's your nurturing nature and your empathetic nature as well. And that comes out in your podcast. And, because you do a consistent podcast, these things are coming out naturally. You may not even be recognizing them, but it's definitely a feminine brand. I wrote down, you enjoy communicating at high levels through any means. And so this is you two to a T. Connection.
I mean, I never really saw myself as an extrovert.
You two are so extroverted. It's unbelievable.
I never saw myself as
what
that.
you're afraid of or what you think you're not being like more open about. If you were just to stay at this level of communication and brand identity, you would still do really well for the rest of your life because you're just basically what you two do is you do it scared. And this has always been mine as well. I mean, people always look at me since I was little and they say, she's definitely extroverted, like she'll do all these things. But really, I think I was immediately impressed with courageous people, interesting things, and just being curious and allowing myself to do it scared. And I see that in you too. And I knew it from the first moment we spoke that you were like this. And so immediately that gives you the label extroverted. You are both.
So I worked really hard on getting like that scared feeling out of my voice. Like,
that wavering,
like almost in tears, like getting that out of my voice and be like, I specifically had a person that I'd be like, okay, can you watch and let me know, how did I do? Like, these are the things I did to prep to myself. Like, how did I do with this piece? Like, this is what I want to be authentic, who I am in this space. And I think we definitely have achieved that, but I worked hard to make sure that I was showing up authentically. Like
Mhm.
I asked someone who knows me really well, like, okay, I was open and it was really nerve-wracking, but was I me? Was I me? Was I me on camera? Was I me here in this space?
And last week, one of our friends actually told us that she's like, okay, I watched a few of your guys' podcasts, and you guys are like the same as you are in person. And that's really cool. And I'm like,
That's a great review.
Yeah,
I like that review.
I was like, that's exactly what we wanted to be.
Yeah.
Like, we are just
Mhm.
being ourselves, living our lives and sharing that journey with everyone.
And that's not easy. That is basically one of the best strategies that any entrepreneur or small business owner can have to create a bigger audience, is to do exactly what you two are doing. And the funny thing is that a lot of women don't like to get feedback. And so what you just told me was both of you searched out specific feedback to basically criticize and get, another perspective on what you're doing and what you love to do.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many women I've met that they don't have any or very little referrals or testimonials. They don't or are afraid to get actual feedback.
Mhm.
And this can really hurt a business because you can still succeed by not doing it. And maybe you're just a genius and you're amazing. And, almost everything you do is great. So you just ride that wave. But I think for anybody, even if you were a genius, getting some feedback can literally take your business from here to here.
Mhm.
And sometimes it isn't easy to hear. I'll tell you something for on camera that I've always struggled with, and that is rolling my eyes. And
Mhm.
I have always been an eye roller, which has gotten me in trouble many times.
Where you're like, oh, geez.
I'm like, so I try to really not do that because it became a habit, and I'm very animated, but this became a habit when I was young, and I didn't mean it in the way that it was always taken.
Right? Because it's our
Right.
internal dialogue. We're like, wow.
There's always little things that you
you know.
can work on, or saying too much or like too much, or if you have the ability and the time to just kind of go, how did I do this year? Or is there something I can improve that would help me communicate more clearly what I need, what I want, how I help, how I support people? Because it is those little things. And if you can tackle them little by little, last year I said, 1,000 times. This year I said, 300 times. That's a success. And, you can also start comparing other kind of little analytics. Like last year I had, 50 clients, and this year I have 75. I wonder if it's because I'm communicating more clearly on video, because I worked on that little part of my speech. So, but it is difficult for women because we have a perfectionist type of sensitivity.
Right.
That's why I always say I'm perfectly imperfect, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We are going to fail forward.
Yeah.
So
I've been hearing that since I became an entrepreneur, failing forward. And I thought the first time I heard that, it gave me so much freedom, because I thought, oh yeah, I've failed lots. This is great. So that's a good thing.
Oh, cool. Right. Like,
great. I'm already succeeding.
Yeah. I had to stop and think about it. I'm not really failing. I'm learning. And I was like, oh, I already have that mindset that I'm learning from this. Okay, cool. We do have some comments today. We have.
Great.
What tips would you give someone who say it's hard for them to talk about themselves and that they need to work on that?
So everybody wants to know about you, and you don't believe this. You believe that you're not that interesting, or you're very shy, or it could be both.
Mhm.
This does deter success in a brand identity as far as people getting to know you, because for personal branding, which is great for any small business owner or entrepreneur, people are really buying you and what they think they're going to get from you before they buy that product or think about it in that way. So I was actually just talking to someone earlier today in a discovery call, and I said, think about it like this: a high-end, lower priced, which to me is still like astronomical, painting, a fine art painting, an oil painting for $100,000. These people, there's so many people all over the world that are selling paintings at these prices, which sounds amazing to me. But I will tell you, the art collectors who are buying from them are buying them first, not, so they're paying $100,000 for actually the artist. Anything that they are telling the world through social media, through a blog, through their website, through email marketing, or even in-person conversations, that is building upon a trust and a following, because it helps you attract these people. And this person who said this, I don't know her name, you may know this, you may know all of this, and you just think, I still can't do it. One of the things that really helped me to allow myself to let the world know more about me, and to kind of leave some of that shame or fear or anything that was really holding me back from allowing them to know me more personally, is I would wake up every day, and I should start doing this again, because it's one of those like basic things that really took me to a whole nother level in my business, and in just meeting people all over the world that have helped me, that have nothing to do with my business. That's been amazing. Is saying, how much do I want this? And do I think that my purpose is more important than my fear? So just kind of asking myself a couple questions in the morning, and you would be surprised, planting that seed and kind of consistently asking yourself those questions every day will get you out of your rut, or out of that kind of stuck place that you might be in when you start to write about yourself. Now, another tip I have about when you're writing about yourself or talking about yourself, especially if you're like in a discovery call and you're trying to land like a new client, and they say, well, tell me about yourself. You're like, oh my God. Don't tell me to tell you about myself. It's horrible. Is to just start writing about it. Write about yourself. And allow this to be another hat that you're wearing. So say when you write about yourself, whether it's in promotion posts online or for your website or anything, or you're just telling someone about yourself, that you are an employee of your business. And this is your job, to tell people about this person, which is you. So you have to be creative and use your imagination to kind of get into this type of mindset. And I think this will really help you. The more you do it, and I know that you two have probably experienced this over the last year, the more you do it, the more creative you get, and the more kind of like, okay, it's done. It just becomes a check mark. Okay, I did it. I wrote my bio. I responded to this email and told them about myself, because it's not your resume. And that's kind of what triggers everybody. It's really telling people, who are you? What do you like? So you could start a list that begins at when you're a young child, all the way up until now, of things that represent you, even if they don't have anything to do with your business. So one of the things that represents me that I always think about from, so far back, is Marilyn Monroe. It's art, it's unicorns, it's
beauty, it's
beauty, it's making the world beautiful, it's flowers, so there's all this symbolism, and mind you, all these things are feminine, but all of this list could help you as well to start expanding your confidence in telling the world about yourself. And it can certainly boost your brand identity when you start, sharing images of these things and just allowing us to know you. I mean, what are you hiding? Are you in, some kind of, hiding that we're not allowed to know you? Are you're so private that we aren't allowed to know you?
Sometimes I think it's that we don't know ourselves. So when we get on video, we feel like someone's going to say something, and we're like, that's not how I meant to be, or something. But it's a really deep knowing of ourselves. So doing these type of exercises really gets you to know yourself, know your priorities.
Right.
This is a great use of the brain dump. Like, I'm going to take a piece of paper, and on this page, I'm going to write down all the things that I love. Not that somebody else loves, that I love. Just starting there, like knowing yourself so well that when you're on camera, when you're in front of people, and how do you get better? It's actually just practice. And it sucks. And our local gal that's asking the question, like, how do you get better at showing up like this? We have some ideas to help support our local ladies. So
For sure.
So there's kind of things coming that we're working on moving forward. Last week, we gave our very first keynote speech.
We did. It was terrifying and exciting and exhilarating and all at the same time.
And while we were doing it, I remembered how I got over the fear of public speaking, because it was so personal. And I was I'm like, I'm going there in my mind, right? Like, I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, this reminds me of how I overcame some of these fears. Is I found an open mic that started at like 3:00 in the morning on Saturday night. So after Bar Rush in Seattle. So I went to this open mic, and at 3 a.m. An open mic, your people are drunk. They don't give a crap what you say. So you really can just be yourself, right? So we had fun things, like we had the nudists that like to talk about politics.
Were they nude?
They were nude.
That definitely gave you confidence. You're like, that person's literally nude. I'm gonna be fine.
You're right, exactly right. Because they can do that. I can go up and just like read my own poetry, right? Like, just putting yourself out there, practicing on a regular basis. Like, and I didn't even remember that I had done that until we were in the middle of our keynote speech, and I was like, look at all these things I did to prepare myself for this moment. Like my whole life, like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So one of the things that we are looking at doing moving forward is at some of our networking meetings have an open mic time for people to practice their speeches in community with support, for people to practice talking in front of other people, just and
just the growth from
that's a great idea. And you're going to be able to lift people up in this way and give them an advantage that they may have never ever had.
Exactly.
Because it is scary to get up on stage. Everything is different. So speaking in this way on using this type of media, it will have a different feel and a different level of fear or confidence for you, depending on how much you practice or how much you do it, compared to getting on stage in front of your town.
Exactly.
It's totally different. And you guys know, because
it's totally different.
And this is more relaxed as opposed to a keynote speech being very professional. And you probably provided maybe a PowerPoint or a pamphlet or something, I don't know, but or not, but you definitely prepared.
We were a performance. we did provide our own.
You are a performance for sure.
Performance.
You don't need any other elements to support you, but you could, think about you two doing a TED Talk.
And that's
right?
kind of
'Cause they
how we
always
talk
have
about
the visual element.
yes.
Yeah.
And that level of professionalism and how they deliver in a TED Talk, like, and thinking about that, like when we're talking with each other, like we can be that. We don't
Mhm.
have to be on a TED Talk to be that level of profession and communicating our hearts, purposes.
Mhm.
Like,
And if
And
you get
that's
up,
very,
if you get up there and you are shaking like a leaf and your voice is
Mm.
quivering and things like that, just take a deep breath and keep going.
yeah.
Because after you get through that the first time, it gets easier.
yeah.
You know, you keep practicing, it gets easier. This doing the podcast, talking on the podcast used to be really hard for us. Like we
We
would
go back and watch our
get
old
the anxiety
episodes, like, and
But
we're like,
now-
wow.
now it's super easy. But what was really hard was that speech that I did
Yeah.
last Friday.
Right.
I was like literally shaking, but I was like, I can do this. We can do this.
You
We
can do it.
are already amazing. We are already enough. We knew our speech was going to be amazing because, you know, we manifested. We decided that that's
Well,
just what it was gonna
and
be.
that was somebody when Anna Marie told
Mhm.
us, you know, she was like, hey, you know, it was like a month and a half out,
Mhm.
and we were already nervous, right? Because we knew it was coming. We
Mhm.
we had put it out there where we're gonna do this, right? Like, okay. And she's like, every night before you go to bed, tell yourself you're amazing at your keynote.
Oh.
And so when we got to it, I knew we were already amazing.
Mhm.
And the people we had with us already see us as enough.
Mhm.
So I knew that I wasn't gonna like, it wasn't an unreceptive audience, you know, so like,
Mhm.
yeah.
It wasn't a bunch of strangers, you know, it
Yeah.
was some of our closest friends and supporters and things like that. And I think that is a really great way to practice and get feedback in a way that is meaningful and honest
Right.
at the same time.
Right. And it is a lot easier to do things like this or to elevate your brand message when you have an overarching brand message and topic that you choose to speak about and help people with.
Yeah.
Because if, for instance, if I were just to go out there and say, you know, women need branding and look at this logo and buy a website. I mean, that's not very appealing and it doesn't say anything about me. There's millions of web designers and brand strategists out there and people who have branding packages. What separates me or you from other people? That's what a good brand really does. And the personal branding is even more fun and exciting because it does force you to look at yourself and to intertwine those personal elements that will really elevate your brand image.
Absolutely.
Because you won't be afraid, you know,
No.
you won't think, oh, I have to wear a suit and pantyhose to this thing. You'll think, no, I'm going to wear what I always wear because that's me. Or I'm going to, you know, talk like this. I'm going to look like this. I'm going to help people specifically like this. So really what you're doing when you build a great, strong, foundational personal brand is you start to learn about yourself. And just like you two were saying earlier, you know, it's weird because, you know, most women that I work with are between 40 and 60. And you would think be at these ages that you would know yourself, that you think you know yourself, in fact. But there's all these questions that we don't delve into. And when you do, it can feel a little bit off because you'll think, well, I'm an expert at this. Okay, we'll talk about it then. How are you an expert at whatever that is for anybody in any industry? What makes you different? And I think that's where a lot of people stumble as well, is when you start to think about what makes me different, how do I separate myself from the crowd? Why am I better than other people? Well, women and feminine, you know, femininity itself can be soft, it can be sensitive, and it can be difficult. So there's, those kind of shadow traits that we all have. And if you're not allowing yourself to love yourself even when you're making mistakes, and just really enjoying the ride and knowing that it's not going to be perfect and all of those different things, well, you're not going to do very well. If you are the opposite, if you are being hard on yourself, if you're being too sensitive, if you need everything, I talk to hundreds of entrepreneurs every year, and most of them, they want what they want. Women, we want what we want right now. And what you want is the dream. Well, you can't go from A to B without everything like in the middle happening. You need the experience. It doesn't matter if you have been doing this your whole life. When you open a business, it's a whole new ball game. And you need to embrace yourself, and you need to allow yourself to ask those really powerful questions and to enjoy, in fact, one of the traits that women are really good at is being honest. But I think it can also be our downfall because we become judgmental against ourselves. So, and I mean, anyone can be this way, men, anybody, dogs can judge themselves.
I think
True.
It could.
What I keep
Really
hearing,
smart.
what keeps coming back to me is
They
we
are.
judge ourselves more than anybody else will ever judge us.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
we are our own worst
Right.
critic, because we have learned to judge ourselves to like fit into this box. Well, guess what? We don't fit in boxes, you guys.
No.
We don't. It's just, we don't. But I also believe that in building your own brand, that really bringing out the truth of who you are,
Yeah.
is probably the most important part.
Oh,
because
and I
that's
just
what's-
connected it to this week's topic of non-hoarding.
Right.
Don't keep it to yourself.
Don't keep it to yourself. Yep. Don't hurt yourself.
Don't hoard to yourself. Don't keep yourself to yourself. Like, we are here to work with each other, and especially as women, having the community and the support and having people to talk to practice our communication. That's so part of who we are as women.
Exactly. So it all stems from the core brand message and, what you stand for. And you can't stand for anything unless you figure out what you stand for when it comes to your brand. Even just asking these very simple questions can become, a long drawn out process of getting to the answer. So don't be too hard on yourself. And start thinking about these things, because if you work with me, I'm going to ask you these things. We're going to figure it out and discover it together. But if you have some of those answers to begin with, we'll definitely be able to get you further along faster. So I know, like, if I were to work with you two today, we would go so much faster than if we were to have worked together when I first met you.
Oh,
True.
And I work with both. So I work with startups who even might not have their, offering, whether it's a product or service, completely fleshed out yet. And I love doing that. But I also love working with powerful women like you at this point, where you have answers and you know where you're going and you're excited and you're courageous. And you just need, more direction on more professional branding, more strategy, better website, like those kinds
It's like
of
all the
things.
little fine tuning.
All the elements coming together,
Yeah.
bring it all together.
Mhm.
So I work with both, and I think that they're different journeys. So for instance, if I were to work with you when I first met you, we would probably be talking even just now, or possibly next year, of refreshing your brand identity, because so much has changed and so much has been learned and things evolve. And I just think that, being honest about that with yourselves and knowing that it's good stuff. And, and think about, over the next week, everybody who's listening, think about, what do I stand for? What am I really trying to help people with?
Mhm.
What helps me stand apart? What are some symbols and things, even like music, songs, all kinds of different things, colors, quotes, all different kinds of things from your childhood all the way up to now that really feel like start to get to know yourself, even if you think you know yourself deeply, because we think so, but when you're blatantly asked the question, you begin to falter and you kind of go all over the place in your head and you think, I'm a web designer. That's pretty general and boring.
Right.
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 It's more exciting to say, like, I empower women. Well, how do you empower women? I'm a question girl. So I ask a
You just
lot of
keep
questions.
peeling the question. Every answer has a question that you can just keep
Peel the
digging
layers,
it.
peel
Like,
the
we're
layers.
gonna keep
Child.
digging it.
Definitely.
That's
But
your sandbox, right? Is all those questions, like digging
I'm
in
like,
the
well,
sand.
what is this? And I love to imagine. I think creativity, curiosity, and imagination are some of the best assets and things that you can be honing in on when you're building your business.
Oh, Allie, this is just perfect.
Good.
Perfect in so many ways.
perfect.
I know that there's so many other women entrepreneurs out there that need to hear this message because they're already enough. It's just peeling out those layers and getting it out on paper. So thank you so much for sharing with us today
Thank you.
on feminine branding and all the wonderful things that that entails, really getting to know ourselves as part of the process. I think is really, really amazing and a really interesting way to look at branding from, that feminine perspective versus the masculine perspective, right? It's a totally different way to look at things. So
Right.
thank you so, so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I always love and appreciate you so much. And we're honored to have you as part of our table.
And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners. We would not be in this space without you. We absolutely love and adore you. You should know that by now. But if you don't, you hear it today. You are loved and adored, and you are already enough.
And our cause of the quarter this quarter is the Boogie Bin. The Boogie Bin, they have barrels around different locations all over Snohomish County, and they collect gently used pet goods and
repurpose them to help local nonprofits who are helping animals that are in distress.
Yes, tons and tons of nonprofits that they help support, both wildlife as well as pets, everything in between.
So we did an episode with Jill Chubbuck, the founder of the Boogie Bin, and she talked a lot about compassion fatigue. And so that has been a really popular episode. So if you want to know more about Jill and our cause of the quarter, that's the episode you want to check out.
Yep, absolutely. And
yeah, so many things are happening. So make sure you hit up the website, www.womeninleadershipbsmb.com. All the things are there.
Everything.
All
right. We love you all and appreciate you all so much. Thank you for joining us today on the Women in Leadership Body, Mind, Soul, and Business podcast. Namaste.
Namaste.